Over the weekend, he posted on X, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." Trump seems to be arguing here that the ends justify the means. The president is above the law, at least so long as what he's doing is good. How do you respond to that?
I think everyone knows I don't agree with that. I don't agree that the president is above the law. Um, I've heard a lot of the defenders of this quote, and he's attempting to quote Napoleon, I think. And I heard a lot of his defenders saying, well, of course, you shouldn't comply with unjust laws and all that kind of thing. And if a law is unjust, then it's not a real law. But that's not what the quote is really saying. The quote is saying that you don't violate a law. Nobody is For those who say you should protest unjust laws and all the rest. What they're saying is if something is unjust, you should accept the consequences to send a message to get things changed. He's saying here that essentially he's above the law. It's a very different thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I pointed out that this was basically the neoconservative mindset. It's been the mindset of a lot of different groups over the years, but the neoconservative mindset that I heard throughout Congress was, well, we have to pass this to save the country. We have to surveil everyone. We have to go to war in every country. It doesn't matter what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter what the limits are. And so that's just one example, the neoconservative mindset, but it's been the mindset of people throughout history who have wanted to abuse the system and take advantage for their own gain. And that's not to say that that something can't be used for good, but in the long run, you're out for despotism if you have this kind of system.
I thought your invocation of neoconservatism was really interesting when you were responding to this on Twitter or X or whatever we're supposed to call it now, because your argument was this is what brought us the Patriot Act, the Forever War, endless surveillance, sort of warrantless surveillance that is possibly unconstitutional. All of these kind of specific programs and government actions that a lot of people in the MAGA world, a lot of Trump supporters, do not like. And Trump has really defined himself as, yes, he's a Republican, and some people will say he is a conservative. I don't even know if Trump uses that word himself, but he's defined himself against Bush-era neoconservatism. You are arguing that there is a link here. Can you just draw that out for me a little bit? Because that is not a criticism that I see made of Trump very much.
Yeah, that's why I used those examples. I mean, I used it intentionally, and I got a lot of people in the comments and the replies saying, "Oh, this is not an apt comparison. What are you doing here?" But it was used on purpose because I know that MAGA world is against neoconservatism, at least rhetorically. So I wanted to use it to show that the same principle that the president is espousing here, that he's essentially above the law doesn't apply to him if he's saving the country, is what neoconservatives used in the past and what people throughout history have used to abuse power and to harm lots of people and violate people's rights. So I just wanted to make that comparison. And let's not forget, by the way, this is another thing that is important to note. In Trump's first term, he reauthorized the Patriot Act. He reauthorized FISA 702. He continued the forever war. No war was ended. The bombings in the Middle East and throughout the world continued, and he continued indefinite detention of Americans without charge or trial. All these policies remained while President Trump was in office in his first term. So for those who say like, "Oh, well, don't blame President Trump for this stuff. It's neocons of the past." I worry, again, as I pointed out to them, that the same kind of philosophy can apply to people who brand themselves in different ways, and you can get the same kinds of results.
Yeah, those aren't neoconservative policies anymore to the extent that they exist under Republican administrations. Those are now Trumpian MAGA policies. Nick, I want to ask you just generally here. You've been away for a couple of weeks, so nice to have you back. Before
Thank
you
you.
left, you said that you were cautiously optimistic about Donald Trump's presidency, about his second term. How is your cautious optimism holding up now?
Well, the drugs have worn off, so everything's a little more muted. But no, I'm still, the that tweet in particular was, a classic Trump rage bait. And it is offensive and disturbing for all sorts of reasons. I was looking up other, it's odd. Like if whenever an American leader, is quoting Napoleon Bonaparte, something has gone wrong to begin with. But another Bonaparte quote, which is worth thinking about, is that the greatest danger occurs at the moment of victory. And what we might, what I think all of us should be worried about, particularly MAGA people, is whether or not Trump and Elon and the whole operation is going to start going down weird rabbit holes where they destroy the base that they have for certain broad missions. That I think everybody is getting behind. And before we talk about, I know we're going to talk about the GOP budget plan, which is a great example of how shitty things are likely to become. We should also recognize directionally things are going in a better direction than they would be if Kamala Harris had won. And I find many of the things that the Trump administration is doing to be pointless and stupid, and really like these are minor things of like taking off an extra cherry on top of a sundae or something, as opposed to going for the real problems that are at core. But you asked me, am I cautiously optimistic? Yeah, I still am. For all of the rotten things that might be going on, we're having a vastly different conversation than we were even 6 months ago. And that conversation is about cutting the size, scope, and spending of government. And this is where I think libertarians really can make a difference, because MAGA people are going to follow Trump. The state, that's him. Whatever he does, they will define themselves as such. I think it's up to principled libertarians to start talking about that isn't cutting government spending. It is not cutting government regulation. It is not cutting the ability of one group of people to tell other people how to live. So still cautiously optimistic. That was a clip from the latest Reason Roundtable. If you want to see more clips, go here. If you want to see the whole episode, go here. Make sure to subscribe at Reason's YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening, watching, or both.